Hi everyone, welcome back to Chasing Past Golf Podcast. Where in this episode, I'm joined by golf coach Alex Huang from, I believe, a very snowy Ohio right now. Is that right?
Yes, very snowy, very cold. It's when I woke up this morning, I believe it was about negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and we got about 2 feet worth of snow this past weekend. So, very much hunkered down, and thankfully we never lost power or anything. But the dog still needs walked, so we've bundled up several times a day and gone out trekking in the snow, shoveling snow, and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like it's been a running joke on this podcast, like quite a little bit in the winter months that yeah, Scotland is absolutely freezing, but it sounds like it's not actually as bad as what's like in Ohio right now. So yeah, I can't complain too much then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a very cold snap at the minute. You said you had dogs, right? Just there, yeah.
Yep.
How many dogs have you got, and what are their names?
Just one dog. He's a border collie mix, and his name's Juno. He's
Juno.
spoiled rotten, smart. Border collies are known to be some of the most intelligent dogs, and he certainly does not break that stereotype because we approximate he probably knows about 150 words, and my wife and I just have to be very careful with what we say around him. Um, Words evolve into certain nicknames to make sure that he doesn't understand them. We probably walk between among like 50-ish areas in our surrounding area to mix things up so he doesn't get bored on his walks. And yeah, he lives. If we all had a life like Juno, we would all be very happy species.
Yeah, like j just touching on that, like, is he very, well, most dogs, to be honest, are like that. Obviously, they're lovable, but they'll love to be attached to you at every point. Is Juno like that as well?
Yeah, he's very much a Velcro dog. So any room I go to, he's with me all day because I'm home. And then, like I said, he has his regimen. He at certain hours, whatever their internal clock is, it is just so precise. So he has his regimen that when he wakes up, he goes through he gets a scavenger hunt, he gets a treat for not barking when we grind coffee beans, to going out to the restroom, coming home and having breakfast, to getting a walk, and then it's rest time. Then he has something at lunch. Then he gets another walk, and then another walk in the evening. And then he comes home and has another regimen before he like zonks out for bed. And if you like break any of those things, there's hell to pay because he'll remind you if you forget a step.
Wow, I mean, that's quite a structured list for a dog. So yeah, I
Yeah, he's
mean,
he's incredibly spoiled, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
yeah. How many times over like the days and weeks does he try and steal your food? It's got to be a lot.
He's pretty good about that, but we made a concerted effort when we were raising him to like not have him eat off of the table. So he
Okay.
understands when he does get food that it has to be in his bowl, and he has like a certain like a mat that he has to go to in order to kind of get that reward. So luckily he's not one to beg at the dinner table, but that was largely an intentional behavior that my wife and I crafted so that we wouldn't have to deal with that when we're eating.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah, so obviously, it's we're just about into the second month of the year, and obviously the back end of last year and the festive season. Did you have a good December, good January?
Yeah, December and January are great. It's the golf world just kind of condenses into a lot of these activities during that time because it is the off season, at least here on the state side. So, for example, the College Golf Coach Convention takes place in December in Las Vegas. So, Scott Fawcett, the owner of Decade, and I go out there because a lot of our clients will be out there. And then in January last week was the PGA show in Orlando. So, Scott and I attended that, and we had a booth for Decade. And it's just a great opportunity because you've just got a huge concentration of a lot of very influential people and people that we're friends with in the golf industry all in one location. And so that's just great. You know, you're sitting around talking to a lot of people who just love golf, and you're constantly reminded of just how many great humans there are in the golf space, especially like me personally. I would say my sphere in the golf world is largely uh, comprised of people who are trying to shoot lower scores, right? Whether that be the tour players I work with, the college teams I work with, or just weekend warriors looking to get better at golf. And it's always such a nice reminder when I go to like the PGA show, you see people who are using golf as a vessel to improve mankind, right? They're trying to help wounded veterans. They're trying to help people like impoverished families and use golf as just a way to teach life lessons and use it as a way to raise money or raise awareness. And when you see people who just see golf more than just the score on the card, it's a nice, refreshing take on, you know, the tiny little bubble I can sometimes end up in with what I do day to day to golf with golf. And the PGA show always is just an annual reminder to me that there's just so many cool people out there that are doing a lot of really, really cool things with golf, whether you be somebody who created a new training aid or somebody who is an instructor, right? Just awesome and just a really fun festival to celebrate the game of golf.
Yeah, it definitely seems very popular at the minute, like the PGA shows and stuff like that. Um, I can only imagine it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So,
Yeah, it's words can't describe the scale of this convention. I mean, they take up an entire building at the Orlando Convention Center, and I mean, like Titleist and Ping and them, they literally build a driving range inside the convention center so you can hit full shots into nets, and they've got robo pickers that are like picking the golf balls, and it's mind you, this is like for a 2, 3 day event, and they're constructing these enormous you know, enormous infrastructure to have a driving range. And you see, maybe I know I would guess probably like 30 to 50 simulators that are built up with projectors, and it looks like something that someone spent 6 months to construct and build out. And all of that is just there for the convention for some brief bit. And again, like you can just spend hours and hours walking around and just seeing all sorts of gizmos and gadgets and like again, a golf junkie is in heaven there.
so basically, you are in heaven there.
Yeah, it's fun, but you know, Scott and I, we're very busy when we're there. As an example, like this year at our booth, we may have had out of 16 to 18 hours being on site, we might have had 15 minutes at the booth where someone wasn't there to talk to us, which is fine. We just didn't have time ourselves to kind of walk around. It was mostly centered around being there, and then we had a lot of instructors and a lot of members and stuff come up to us, and you know, all of them wanted to talk about different things, whether it be strategy related or sharing stories of how Decade has kind of improved their game, answering questions that they might have about how to like utilize Decade in their instruction. Just a real variety, but it's certainly not a week where Scott and I are just sitting on our butts, soaking things in. It's a lot of interaction. I would guess we probably chatted with a good 300 people throughout the week, and that can be a bit quite exhausting, honestly.
So, how did you feel after the PGA Tour show? Did you feel like you could sleep for about 3 days?
I did, but I wasn't given that luxury because I came home, landed at about midnight, got home, and 3 hours in, about 2.5 hours after I fell asleep, my dog got out of bed and he was kind of rummaging around. I was kind of half awake, but then all of a sudden I hear a noise, and then I hear him kind of run out into our living area. I walk out as well as my wife. Middle of the night, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm blind. I flip on the light, and there's a bat in our house, and the bat starts
Oh
swooping
my.
all over the place. So long story short, we ended up having to go get rabies shots at the ER. So we went to get rabies shots the next day, had to get my dog's rabies shots updated as well. And then about 15 minutes after our shots, we're driving on the freeway, getting ready for this snowstorm that's coming, that's going to drop about 2 feet of snow on us. And we get sideswiped by a semi truck on the highway, and it puts a giant hole in the side of my car. And luckily, everything was fine. Like, we didn't get thrown off the highway or anything, but obviously, just this series of events. I'm underslept, just got a rabies shot, Now I'm thrown on the side of the highway with my car with a giant hole in it. Yeah, so I didn't have time to rest until so maybe that snowstorm was a blessing because it didn't allow me to get out of the house for a few days.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry to hear about that. I mean, series of unfortunate events, definitely, but glad all is well. And yeah, at least you can enjoy the snow, I guess, even though it is very, very cold. So,
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm ready, gearing up for college season, gearing up for LPGA Epson season. They're right around the corner. But it is a bit painful to go outside and just feel that cold in your deep in your bones.
yeah, so speaking about the LPGA Tour season, it kicks off this week at the Tournament of Champions. As the LPGA Tour as a whole, what are your plans in terms of like your coaching and training, etc., with some of the clients that you have?
Yeah, so what I specialize in is really providing some context to my players that they have a good understanding of kind of what is achievable, right? I think one of the big struggles when you're working with a lot of really elite players is that they all kind of have, for a lack of a better term, a superhero complex, right? They all think they're invincible. They all can't fathom the idea that they would ever miss hit a shot or not hit it dead on line. And so when I'm able to kind of show them some of the statistics to contextualize things like, well, guess what? You don't get to make all of your 8 footers. Guess what? You don't get to never three putt. Those little cues can sometimes help keep them a bit more even keeled, which at their level, that's everything, right? That they're not standing in the fairway frustrated because they understand like, okay, the math kind of says that I just occasionally three putt from 30 or 40 feet, right? And accepting that as just part of the realities of golf instead of standing in the fairway being angry that they just made a three putt and now they're trying to get that shot back by being, you know, full gas, no brakes with this wedge in their hand to a front pin tucked over a water hazard and only looking at the flag because they're so focused on trying to undo that bad that they just did. And so I'm there to work with my players to provide that context so that they can stay a bit more centered and a bit more objective in understanding some of these realities in the game of golf, right? For example, it's not about never three putting, it's about three putting less than your competition. And if sometimes that can be the difference between them now making a stupid hero shot, trying to work a ball to a tucked pin and it not working out. Next thing they know, they make a double bogey with a wedge in their hand on their approach shot versus, again, just staying according to the game plan, plodding along, and then just letting the natural cadence of golf and the ebbs and flows of golf sort of take place.
Yeah, so like, what would you say is your main? So would you say that's kind of your main ethos, just trying to just trying to kind of keep your players like in the moment slash level headed when it comes down to trying to strategize how to go about the golf course.
Yeah, I would say that the main thing I really encourage players to focus on is the process, right? Like um we can't control. So for example, in golf, there is just one of the hard realities of golf is that there is just a ton of luck involved with both winning and kind of how you score. Because if you think about your shot in golf, you've got your shot pattern, right? So within your shot pattern, you've just got a massive amount of variance of where your shot ends up relative to all sorts of variables, right? The way the wind hits the ball when it's in the air, obviously like your club face, club path properties, a little moisture gets between the ball and the club face. All of those things are going to influence where the ball kind of falls relative to your intended target. Now, when you're talking about the luck in golf, it really is a lot of where you are relative to your shot pattern and how that matches up to kind of where the hole is cut on the green. If you're picking good targets, you can't intentionally sometimes miss on the right part of your shot dispersion to try to attack a right pin, right? And understanding that there are just so many elements and aspects to the game of golf that are kind of predicated by luck is something that golfers don't want to hear, especially elite players like the LPGA girls, who, at the end of the day, top golfers are all kind of control freaks, right? They like to believe that they just have maximal control of the golf ball when in reality they don't. And so I really stress to my players this understanding of controlling what you can and really, really focusing on that process and making sure you kind of like check the boxes of the process and then you can just deal with the results and figure it out from there, right? So for example, putting, find the best speed, find the best read, and you've done your work to get your speed dialed on the greens, and then just hit that putt to that speed. And whether the ball goes in or not is not really that important because if you do it consistently enough, the hole is going to get in the way for the ball to go in. But what you can't do is you can't be so upset or so angry that your ball didn't go into the hole because there's just again, even in putting, you see so many little variables like bumps in the greens, or obviously you've got like your putting stroke and stuff that's going to all just be in all variables that add up to whether your putt goes in or not, right? So you control what you can, which with putting is speed and trying to get the right read. Golf shots, same thing, making sure that you've calculated all your variables, making sure that you've calculated all of your modifiers. So with wind, certain penalty hazards you want to avoid, certain sections of the green that you don't want to be scrambling from. All of those factors are going to should be totaled up for you to get to the right answer so that now you've got, let's call it the mathematically optimal target. And now the onus is on you as the athlete. Your special power is to hit a golf ball a certain distance at a certain target. And now that you've done all of that prep work correctly, now it's time to showcase why you've hit hundreds and thousands of golf balls and spent thousands of hours on that driving range. Because your superpower is hitting a golf ball. But now you've done all of the prep work to understand what the answer is, remove all doubt about if you're being too aggressive or too conservative. And now it's time for you to show out. And that's what's so important with the players that I work with. It's understanding, I want you to focus on the process. Did you check all of the boxes to get to the process? If you did, we'll deal with the results. And sometimes the results aren't what you wanted, but we're all human. We all make bad swings. And that's, again, one of those realities that players have a lot of trouble accepting because they're such perfectionists.
Yeah, definitely. And so obviously, well, well, obviously, quite a lot of the people that you mentor are like obviously very nice people, but like there are the odd occasion where you're not so popular. How difficult is that?
Yeah, it could be a challenge. Luckily, most of what I teach my players is grounded in numbers, right? So having that data to support you can be very helpful. So a great example is one of the most common ideas that players simply don't like to hear is the fact that once you get outside 25 feet, the best putters in the world are leaving about half of their putts short of the hole. Okay. And that like directly contradicts a lot of what many of us grew up doing, which is hearing coaches and hearing our friends say, no good putt is ever left short of the hole, right? But then if you look at the numbers, it bears out. I did an analysis on the top 10 strokes gained putters at Oakmont this past year in the US Open, and I looked specifically at their putts from outside 25 feet. And they left 47% of them short of the hole, right? And when you're able to present data like that and show them real world applications of like, this is literally what the best players in the world are doing, it's very difficult for them to push back, right? Like they still might have some doubts, but it at least gives me a leg to stand on instead of giving them answers based off of emotion or subjectivity. Here is the math. This is a very objective, data supported reasoning. And typically they're going to at least be a little more curious once you're able to kind of defend it that way.
Yeah, and other times that maybe sometimes you would get a little bit frustrated as well if maybe a client wasn't, well, I wouldn't say wasn't listening, but yeah, you know what I mean, like maybe have some sort of disagreements about a certain strategy, etc.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I understand a lot of what I teach is just extremely, bad habits are going to resurface, right? So if I have a player who is just super aggressive, aiming at all the pins, trying to get all of their putts past the hole, that's going to catch up to them, right? But I also don't expect them to go out and play and once they get in that pressure environment, not to end up falling back into bad habits. I think that's just kind of human nature. And so that's why even with the players I work with, we will have periodic check-in calls to just be like, hey, we just had a long layoff with the off season. Now that we're gearing back up, let's have a call to refresh some of our key points about things we need to focus on, right? Understanding what our objectives were at the end of fall, because over the course of having 2 or 3 months of just probably playing golf with friends, not taking it as seriously or being as disciplined on the golf course, they're going to have some degradation there. They're going to regress back to some bad habits. And so this constant reminder and then recognizing that like it's great when you make a mistake because we can use that as a lesson, right? And honestly, a lot of players, they don't really quite listen until they've failed spectacularly, right? When they're constantly making stupid bogeys when they've got wedge in their hand, or if they're making bad three putts because all of a sudden we realize every three putt you have is because that first putt you ran by 6 feet. Well, what if we start trying to leave a couple of those putts short of the hole, and now that 6 feet moves to 3 feet from the hole, and now you've moved it from a position of making the putt 2 out of 3 times to 99% of the time, right? And so sometimes it takes the player failing or really struggling with something for them to start being a bit more open-minded to thinking about things in a different way or trying things in a different way because now they've kind of waved the white flag and realized what they're not working or what they're doing just isn't working.
So you've only really done this for the past 2.5 years. You were telling me off air. So how did it kind of first come about, like the idea of, golf coaching, etc. Because I do know that you were pretty like in terms of the game in general, very keen on the game of golf.
Yeah, so it kind of all started out with, my background is I worked in the poker industry for 18 years, and there's just a lot of parallels with poker and golf. They're games that you're constantly playing the probabilities, but there is a ton of luck involved in the actual outcome, right? So, worked in the poker space, and I actually met Scott in the poker space where he was a member at our training site while he was trying to make it on the mini tours. He was kind of supplementing his income by playing online poker. He and I obviously bonded over our mutual love of golf. And then when he built out Decade, he and I kind of stayed loosely in touch. I got a really good idea of kind of how the system worked. And then I started helping some area kids who played in college and high school just with caddying, doing some course preparation, nothing in a formalized capacity, but it was just something fun, right? I truly enjoy helping players elevate their game by being, call it like that bridge between data and something that the normal person can understand. You see a lot of players that put in the data, but they don't quite know how to leverage that data into useful practice plans or feedback on what they should work on. And that really is one of my roles with all the players I work with because I can tell them once again, like what's achievable, what's good, what's bad, where's kind of your low hanging fruit to get better. And so that was just a natural interest of mine, given that I love numbers. So I started working with some high school kids. I started working with some college kids in my area and again, just focusing on course management, giving them a good idea of how to sort of think about the game, how to think about shot patterns, stuff like that. And the results were great. I had several qualify for USGA championships. I had several that ended up winning and medaling in college events, having really, really successful college careers. And when I started doing that, again, kind of loosely kept in touch with Scott. And then that grew into an opportunity where he asked me to join in a more formal capacity with Decade. So I took the leap and I joined them at the end of in the end of fall 2023 and kind of like took over all of the college relationships. And then through that, you just end up meeting people who know people who know people. And when somebody's having success, word travels. And there's no greater endorsement or compliment to your work than when an actual player is telling their friends like, "Hey, you need to go do this to get your game to the next level."
Yeah, and as a result of, good feedback, etc., it was like the Ohio college team in stuff like that, where you really started, wasn't it? And then obviously kind of gradually build up from there.
Yeah, yeah. So, Decade already had a very big footprint in college golf when I joined, but since I took over a lot of the college stuff, I built some really good relationships with many coaches. A lot of college coaches are just such awesome people. So one of them was the women's golf coach for Ohio State, and given my proximity to them, we became quite good friends. And so naturally, she had a girl who was graduating that was going to try to make it on tour. And I went out and did a playing lesson with her. And it was honestly like, so her name's Caley McGinty. Caley and I had never met before, never spoke before. And I literally just showed up on the first tee with the coach, and we were like, okay, today we're going to do a playing lesson. You're just going to do what I tell you. You're going to be like a puppet. I'm going to play you around the course, and we're going to see how good you are at hitting the targets I call out and how good you are at hitting your numbers. It's simple as that. We spent probably 10 or 15 minutes on the first hole just arguing about whether or not she needed to shape her shots two ways. Okay, because she was convinced, at the Ohio State Scarlet course, there's some dogleg lefts, dogleg rights, so she needs to hit a draw or a cut. Um, and of course, like I'm telling her, like, no, this is like overkill. I just need you to hit your most consistent shot shape, and we'll figure the rest out. So we ended up settling on an agreement where it's like, okay, today you're just going to do what I say. At worst, you think this is the biggest waste of 18 holes you've ever had in your life, and we never talk again. And at best, we unpack something that might be quite special. So she goes around the course, and once again, I think it's consistently rated as like one of the top five hardest collegiate courses in America. Goes around, has two three putts, and shoots 66, one off the course record. And it's like, I didn't even play well, and I shot that. But what did she do? Oh, she hit, I think, 16 greens that day, and just was like the two three putts. One was from like 70 feet, and another one was from like 65 feet. They weren't egregious or anything. Well, she was getting ready to gear up for the LPGA qualifying school. This was back summer of 2024. And we ended up starting working together. I ended up going out with her to stage one. So this was out in California. We go out there and kind of the same game plan, right? It's like I did all of the prep work with satellite imagery. We looked at the pin sheets. We did all of that stuff ahead of time. She played the practice rounds. I fly in the night before, course unseen, and just rely on the information she sort of noticed while she was playing. Goes out, plays great. I think she hit like 92% of her greens overall over 72 holes and hit 100% of her greens on par threes and just cruises her way through stage one. So great, like excellent proof of concept. Well, we go on to stage two, and the intention was that I was going to caddy for her at stage two, but there was some bad weather in Florida. A hurricane canceled the event, and they had to postpone it a week or two, which then ended up not working out for my schedule. So basically, here's Kaylee playing practice rounds, and like I'm on FaceTime, and she's like asking me questions, and just I did like the satellite prep work for her, but then she's just on site presenting some things that maybe I can't notice with satellite imagery. We're doing all that. She goes out, plays great, ends up making it on the number, making a final hole. She makes like a 30-foot putt on a 2.5% slope to get to stage three. Okay. So now she's like secured full Epson status. Epson is obviously the Corn Ferry Tour for women in the US. And so I had an opportunity to go caddy for her at LPGA finals. So it's like, let's go do this, right? 90 holes. What are we going to do? Well, over 90 holes, we go down there. And once again, we stuck to that game plan. So from stage one all the way through, we made the commitment that we're not going to aim at any pins and we're not going to hit any draws. Okay. So over 90 holes at LPGA finals, we aimed at exactly zero pins. We hit exactly zero draws. And she finished 12th in birdies and top 10 in bogey avoidance and got her full LPGA status and ended up being the only woman in 2024 to start at stage one and go all the way through to get full LPGA status. Right. And this was just a great confirmation to all of the stuff that she and I had been working on. This reminder that when you can do the things you can, back to that things you can control idea, right? What did we control? We controlled our ability to hit greens. We controlled our ability to hit putts with great lag speed. We controlled our ability to avoid bogeys. And then we just kind of let the birdies fall in place, right? Good players make birdies. That's just the reality. They get to play par fives. They get to hit wedges. They get to make mid-range putts. So what we did is going into the week, we told ourselves, okay, these greens at this venue are massive. These greens at this venue have a whole lot of slope in them, but we're not going to let that trick us into now picking suboptimal targets because we're so scared of these ridges. And instead, what we're going to do, we're going to hit as many greens as we possibly can. We're going to understand the trade-off there is that we might three putt more than your average girl, but in totality, that's going to outperform hunting for certain quadrants of the greens and trying to avoid certain ridges. And now what we've done is we've effectively shrunk our green target from a space that's 30 yards wide down to 15 because we're so worried about these ridges. And then what happened was pretty cool because we went in telling ourselves, okay, 5 days, if we just three putt 5 times total for the week, I like our chances. But meanwhile, we played 10 rounds with other girls, and these girls are actively hunting these little quadrants of greens. So these ridge avoiders still three putted 16 times. So it's like, yeah, you guys missed the green, and guess what? You still get to screw with that ridge on your next shot. We'll just screw with it on our second shot instead of our third shot on a par four, right? We'll figure it out from there, and we'll just understand like maybe that will cause us to three putt once or two more times, but in totality, that's gonna outperform having to scramble a bunch and having to now chip up, hit good chips up to 4 to 6 feet, and then hoping that we kind of fall on the correct side of variance and in holding our disproportionate number of those.
So in Kaylee's case, like during her LPGA tour season, did you get to go out to much of the tournaments like for like practice purposes and stuff like that?
Yeah, so LPGA season is just a little I don't want this to turn into an LPGA rant, but their schedule is just a little disjointed. So for example, you start out the season, you've got the Asia swing, and
Hmm.
then you've got like this week's Tournament of Champions, which is obviously a limited field event. And
Yeah.
then you've got like a break where they go to Europe, and then you've got a break and they go back to Asia, and it's just a very difficult schedule to really have any sort of routine or rhythm, especially if you compare it to like the PGA Tour. So Kaylee ended up having I don't know how many starts she got. I know the first event she was able to play was the one in Arizona, and then she did like a few events out on the West Coast, and then there was like a break, and then a few more events, and there was a break, and then she qualified for the. I ended up caddying for her at the U.S. Open qualifier, which was another great triumph for us. She ended up trying to qualify at the Pittsburgh location. The Pittsburgh location only had one spot. As luck would have it, she was the literal first player off the tee. So I drove 5 hours. I woke up at 2 a.m. I drove 5 hours to caddy for her, walked 36 holes, and drove home in the same day. And she ended up winning by 8 shots and got into the U.S. Women's Open. Um, but again, it's just like this disjointed schedule that's very tough to get in a rhythm. One event's only 54 holes. Another event got rained out this year. But Kaylee ended up, I think her highest finish was seventh in the event in Boston and finished like right around 100th on the money list. So she was like one or two spots out of full status. So she has like pretty good status for the upcoming season. And then she also got she got through LETQ school as well. So she has full LET status for this upcoming year in addition to should get a good number of starts on the LPGA.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of that aspect, obviously, if things don't go right, I guess like and you're struggling a little bit on the LPGA, having full LET status as well is always a good alternative to have, and definitely feel like with the LPGA Tour players going to the LET that they can maybe gain a little bit of confidence again, and then that'll kind of grow their game back to where they want to.
Yeah, and I think it's important, especially for European players like Kaylee. They need LET status of some sort in order to be eligible for the Solheim Cup. And so
Yeah.
that's why you see a chunk of them who have LPGA status still play LET because they need that status in order to even have a chance, I believe. I could be butchering the mechanics, but I believe they need some kind of LET status in order to be eligible for Solheim points.
Yeah, because Julia Lopez Ramirez, obviously, she got her LET Tour card, but
Hmm.
she had to obviously go there for Solheim Cup purposes. Ingrid Lindblad was also there.
Yeah.
Carolina Lopez-Chacarra as well. So yeah, players like that um, were obviously going to LETQ school to, I presume, try and get some sort of privileges to try
Hmm.
and push for the Solheim. So
Yeah, and it's just grueling because just to contextualize this for listeners who may not know, you're playing 90 holes in Alabama in extreme, I mean it's weather-wise it just couldn't be worse. The year that I caddied, I think we had four stoppages of play. They pushed 9 holes back an additional day. And then the players who are playing LETQ literally hop on a plane and fly to Morocco on the other side of the world to play LETQ. So it's not
mhm.
only grueling physically from a golf standpoint, but then obviously travel can be very tiring. You're probably laying over at least once or twice in Dubai or Germany or something to get to Morocco. And then it's straight into practice rounds because then it's straight into competitive rounds. And so it's really like probably, I mean, I would guess like 20 days full of intense golf when you add in the practice rounds for LPGAQ all the way to the end of the fourth round of LETQ. You're looking at probably 2 weeks of just nonstop golf, travel, complete exhaustion. And like that type of endurance is so often overlooked when it comes to the life of a pro golfer, right? Because let's be real, it's not as sexy as flying private jets and everything for the majority of everybody, right? It's not flying in first class. It's you packing up your bags, packing up your clubs, booking your own travel most of the time, going to a foreign country, completely different culture, completely different dietary scene, and then having to figure all of that out, plus the logistics, plus the language barrier. Then you have to focus on being good at golfing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've had a chat obviously with quite a few pros during the podcast, and yeah, like even when they go on about how basically the life of a pro golfer isn't as glamorous as what everyone thinks it's going to be or makes it out to be. So
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest challenges in golf, and it's something that I commend everybody who's had any sort of longevity in the space, is it's not a game that you have a lot of success in the sense of winning, right? Your typical weeks, bar Scotty Scheffler, Gino, Nelly, and Tiger, are failures. Somebody beat you, and you need to have the utmost confidence in like genuine confidence in yourself that you still have what it takes to cut it. And that's like easy to say from the outside, but if you just think about having an activity that you're just constantly getting beaten up on, right? Where you are missing cuts or even just like making the cut but not really contending and going through these motions, and then you look at the leaderboard and you've got the Genos of the world or the Scotties of the world that are just making the game look completely effortless. And then feeling
yeah,
lost in your game, but having that same resilience to be like, I'm going to go out tomorrow. I'm going to hit balls for 4 hours. I'm going to do all of the technical work to get better. And that is not an easy thing for the average person. Like it takes a very special makeup of a person to be able to constantly tell themselves that like I'm going to roll myself out of bed today and I'm going to start from scratch and I'm going to figure this out. And I have all the belief in the world that, think of like Tiger with all of his swing changes he had. It's absolutely absurd for Tiger to basically have 3 careers with 3 different swings, right? Because the game is hard enough with whatever our like biomechanical natural patterns are, but then to like overhaul it and then overhaul it again and then get it to a level where you're literally dominating golf is is just like so underrated in my opinion. Because once again, golf is just a game that you're just constantly getting beaten up on. And you need to have this self-belief and resilience to persevere and to continue to keep working because sometimes it takes, 100,000 golf balls on the driving range for your swing to finally click. And then you don't have any opportunities to play if you're a pro that lost their status or didn't get into a field because of like limited field status or something. Then you start looking for places to play, and all of these challenges again are just what make pro golfers such unique creatures really because they really are like lone wolves in a lot of ways. And like
Yeah,
you said, it's not all glitz and glamour.
yeah, definitely not. So like obviously you pointed out Caley McGinty there. But she's obviously not the only player that you coach at the minute. Like who are some of the others that you are in close contact with at the minute?
Yeah, so I started working with Carolina Chacarra Lopez, who you mentioned earlier. She's going
Hmm.
to be an LPGA rookie. And I also work closely with Gina Kim. I started working with her on the Epson Tour last year. She ended up going on to win 3 times on Epson last year and locking up her full LPGA status. So very excited to kind of see both of those girls. Um, you know, see what they got on the LPGA. They're Gina's kind of like a seasoned vet in a way, and then Carolina's going to be going through like the rookie trials and tribulations, but she had a absolutely tremendous collegiate career. She won her NCAA regional individually, qualified for the US Open, medaled at the Duke qualifier, extremely, extremely polished, terrific amateur career. So those are a couple that I'm just really excited about seeing how they kind of kick off the season.
Yeah, and in terms of like Carolina, for example, obviously she's kind of at the start of her year. Um, No doubt, a lot of talent. Do you think quite a lot of people will be looking forward to see how she gets on like straight away? Because obviously, if you've got that kind of pedigree in the amateur game, quite a lot of people have big expectations for players like that. So, do you think that? Do you think that might affect her in any way, do you think? Or
No, I mean, I think that she kind of gets it, right? Her and I worked really hard once again on not being so obsessed with the scores and really focusing on that process, that idea of avoiding bogeys, being patient on the course. A player of her caliber, again, she's going to fall into many, many birdies because she's a great all-around player, right? Terrific short game, excellent putter. She played really well at Augusta last year. So just she's like proven on very difficult tests. She's played a lot of the team events in Europe. I would be very surprised if she ends up not having a lot of success in a long career on the LPGA because once again she comes from a great program, so she's got like that support group from the Wake Forest women's golf program with excellent coaches, a very kind of like blue blood type program of college golf. She's, some of her teammates are now on tour with Mimi Rhodes, and I think Lauren Walsh is another one. So she's been there, right? Wake Forest plays as hard a schedule as anyone in women's golf, and then obviously with her Team Spain stuff, she's played a lot of top tier events. So I think she's going to be really comfortable out there. And there'll obviously be the normal challenges with just being an LPGA rookie, but from a golf course standpoint, I don't expect her to have any issues because she's just such an all-around polished player.
yeah, I don't know, like in a personal aspect, like how much you can actually disclose here, but like in terms of her game in general, what would you say is her kind of, main strengths and weaknesses as such?
No, I think it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but she does everything well. You don't fake your way or rely on just one aspect of the game to accomplish what she's done in college golf. Um, and again, I think that's a testament to obviously just her natural talent, but also, Coach Llewellyn and Coach Potter at Wake Forest do such a good job of preparing their players to play at the next level, right? And that's why you see again, like the Mimi Rhodes just have immediate success on the LET, and you see Amelia and Rachel Keane and all like a who's who of college golf is Wake Forest. It's basically like Wake Forest, Stanford, and then you have like a couple teams that filter in and out. But that's a testament to just sort of the type of program that they've built, and that type of preparation, I really believe, builds a certain moxie about the player that allows them to kind of hit the ground running at the professional level.
And in Gina Kim's case, like how much are you looking forward to seeing what she can do like consistently, like at the top level? Because I believe you were saying once you started to get, I think it was like 3 wins in the space of what, 2, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So the first week I worked with her on the Epson tour, she went on to win, and she ended up winning three times, I think in the next maybe 10 to 14 weeks, something like that. Yeah, the Gina one's really exciting because she I think she was the number one high school player when she was coming into college, and then played at Duke. So again, like another blue blood program, and Gina is just she's just like, again, you have to be a good all around player for all of them, but she was so consistent on the Epson tour last year. I don't have her numbers off the top of my head, but she finished like number two or number three in the race for the card, won three times. I think she may have been like 10th in bogey avoidance and only like 14th in birdies. And like again, that's like the signs of a consistent player when you're not out birdieing the field by 10 birdies to achieve wins, right? She's just playing good, solid, patient golf, and eventually stars line up in certain weeks, and those are the weeks she ends up winning by three, four, five shots, right? She shot a course record at Connecticut and didn't even play amazingly. But she just stuck to the game plan and was very disciplined. And once again, like another girl I work with, she was the leader and winner on the WAPT, which is like the Annika Tour. And it's that same idea where her name's Haley Jones, and she'll be on the Epson Tour this year. But Haley was, I believe, 12th on the entire tour in birdies, but number one in overall because she was number one in bogey avoidance, right? And right there are just two examples: Gene on the Epson Tour, Haley on the WAPT Tour, where they kind of like bought into the ideas and they really, really illustrated the power of having good strategy combined with obviously the skills, the technique. I call it like the golf hard skills, right? So the golf swing, the uh, club path mechanics, all of that stuff. That with good strategy and good discipline is an extremely lethal combination. And that is how you produce the results that they both had, where Gina wins three times. Did she get a little lucky to win three times? Oh, most certainly. But if you look at her stats, I think she may have missed one or two cuts all year and just consistently top 15. And then the same for Haley. Haley, I think, had 14 or 15 starts on the Annika tour, and I think she had 12 top fives. Right. And like that is the type of consistency that allows you to just keep yourself in play. And then when things kind of fall your way or stars align, you now just catapult up the leaderboard.
So, so taking it back to yourself, how did you kind of first discover the game of golf then? Was it something you were always interested in?
Yeah, I actually started when I was younger being a very serious baseball player. So, did quite well in baseball, but honestly got really frustrated when I was younger of having good games and still losing. Okay, so I was like, okay, this sucks. My team sucks, but I had a good game, but I lost. I hate this. So then I kind of transitioned into tennis, and I loved tennis. But then tennis was a sport where it was like, I need to have a good opponent to have fun, good rallies. If I have an opponent that can't keep the ball on the court, well, this is no fun either. So it wasn't until I was about 15 that I first tried playing golf. And my first round of golf I ever played, I shot 90 on 9 holes. And it was, you know, looks a lot easier than it actually is. But I think from that moment on, I realized it was one of those games that you just can never perfect. And that was like a natural appeal or attraction to me. And so that sort of was the start of that to high school golf. I didn't play college golf, but obviously was still very entrenched in like the college golf realm, following college golf, played a ton with my buddies, and still like to just play some amateur events and love to go to my club and play some money games with my friends.
So, where's your current, affiliation golf club?
Yeah, so I'm a member at a club here in Ohio that's luckily only about 8 minutes away from me. It is the last club, or it was the last PGA championship to be match play format. So it's got a little bit of history. It's a Donald Ross course. Not a terribly long course. Some of the best greens in our area. The greens amazingly have like never been redone, and they're just like so pure. And we've got a great group because it's very much a golf club, meaning we play in fivesomes and sixsomes more often than we do foursomes. And we will occasionally get 10 guys and we'll play wolf scoring alternate shot with 5 teams. So you've got 5 guys hitting shots, 5 guys sitting in carts heckling you, and that's a lot of fun. We've got like a good money game and just a really good crew, broad broad spectrum of handicaps, but keeps it really fun, right? The guys, none of them take it too seriously. And again, since it's kind of run by members, we're able to have quite a bit of leeway as far as the types of events that we have, our ability, like I said, to play fivesomes or sixsomes, and that just adds a lot of character to the club because I think a lot of country clubs and stuff that you play at, you're so worried about you're kind of like walking on eggshells because you're worried about breaking rules. And our club is very much the opposite, where it's just kind of like anything goes. We don't have tee times. Pace of play is always going to be really, really good. And it's just a course that's very suitable for players of all handicap and skill levels because there's not a lot of forced carries. You can like bump balls onto the greens, traditional Donald Ross design. So like really, really good greens, most of them back to front and yeah, just like a very fair but fun golf course.
Yeah, do you prefer being the golfer or the heckler?
Oh, far more the heckler. I do not enjoy despite everything I do, I really really do not like pressure on the golf course.
No. I, to be honest, I thought maybe you would say the heckler just so you're making fun of everybody, etc. So
Yeah, I would much rather not be the one, and that's one reason why I love caddying, right? Because I'm not a competitive person in general. So I enjoy being in the ropes in a competitive environment, but I don't want to be the one hitting the shots. And so caddying kind of checks that box in the sense that I get to be in the ropes at an LPGA event or in a USGA qualifier, and I'm directly helping my player. I'm like providing value by getting good numbers and picking good targets, but I don't have to be the one that has to hit that stupid little white ball. And I love that.
so how did the minimal minimal caddy starts kind of come about as well? Like, was that something that you always looked into? Obviously, you mentioned that you love numbers, etc. Obviously, caddy's a big part of that. Um, was it something you were interested in getting into at some point?
Not really. I just enjoyed again, I like to believe that I help my players when I'm on the bag because I do provide probably I like to believe I provide a bit of a calming voice so that when they're mad that they missed a putt, I can tell them like, "Hey, listen, like these were kind of the odds behind that shot, so you don't have a right to be mad or you need to like chill out." So caddying was always just a fun way again to kind of be in the arena without being in the arena as a player. And so it was always a natural appeal to me to be able to go caddy for a player at a US amateur or whatever, be around a lot of really good golf, be in that environment without having, not that I was ever good enough to play in a US amateur, but without having that need to be the one hitting the shots, right? Because just caddying, you get to like walk some really, really cool tracks and you get to experience a lot of really cool things. And like me personally, I get that same adrenaline rush as if I was a player.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And what would you say is the hardest part about caddying, like in your own personal opinion?
I think honestly, the hardest part about caddying is, for me personally, it is probably um, not being. I'm not a big one for like call it like decorum and whatever. Okay. So when you're talking about the procedural side of caddying, as an example, um, when I'm at my club, I am very all of us are like pretty loose about like talking while someone's hitting and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll forget where I am because I'll just be like chatting with my player and someone else is like hitting their shot and I'm just kind of unaware, a little oblivious to it. And so that's definitely been a bit of a struggle because my club is so casual that sometimes I forget things such as like, oh, standing in a way that like when the player's lining up, they can kind of see me in their peripheral vision. And then they'll, after like three holes, tell me to like move. And then you feel like a little embarrassed because it's like, okay, I know better, but it's just not something I think about because when I'm personally playing, I'll be in the middle of a conversation and hit a shot while I'm talking, right? Like I just don't care enough. And I forget that like I'm the outlier, not the norm. And so I'll oftentimes just kind of catch myself being a little reckless with clanging the clubs around while someone else is hitting a shot, or yapping with my player while someone's lining up for a shot, or being in the wrong position with their sight line or through line, and all of that type of stuff. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me. And then the other one would probably just be being a little hypercritical of other people with my player. So it'll be like someone we're playing with hits a shot, and I'll just kind of like say something to my player about like, well, that was really stupid strategically. And sometimes I tend to underestimate how much my voice carries, and it's gotten me in trouble a couple times.
Wow. I mean, yeah, like I was literally going to say, like, has there ever been a time where a player's been, it could, well, it might not be your player, but it could be another player in the group's
Mhm.
been pissed off with you, basically.
Oh yeah. Definitely have had issues with like all of these golfers are very creatures of habit, right? So they do things in a very meticulous way, and like sometimes it's really annoying. So I had one at a USGA championship. The kid we're playing with, I've never seen this before, and I hope I never see it again. But he would line up his ball, and then he'd walk to the other side of the hole to check his line, and then he'd walk all the way back to his ball and fix the line, and then walk all the way back to the other side of the hole to confirm the line. And then he'd step back over to his ball and then finally hit it. So needless to say, he was slow as hell. And I slow golf drives me crazy, and it is obviously just like a pervasive epidemic in competitive golf. But he did this, and like by the fourth or fifth hole, I'm just over it, right? So I'm like taking the bag and just moving on to the next hole and stuff like that, and it ended up leading to a bit of a confrontation with his caddy, but it was just crazy, right? Like I could not believe that that player did that. And then eventually, of course, we get put on the clock because the USGA is so picky about it. And it impacts the whole group because always there's like one player who is the slow one, but then it's like the other two players that kind of get punished by it. And just, that was an instance where like the caddy just got a little upset with me because I was like, I'm over this. I'm not standing here and watching him walk 2,000 steps to hit one putt. I'm going to the next tee box and I'm gonna like get ready for the next shot. And so the caddy kind of gave me a word and it started there, but obviously like it de-escalated.
Yeah, so troublemaker. No, I'm kidding. So, yeah, like, uh, how how would you say, like, what would you say is your, like, when you're being the coach, etc. What would
Mhm.
you say is your main strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I think my biggest strength is simply just being objective, right? I am very good. My players might debate you on this, but like I don't get too excited when they make a birdie, right? I'm just kind of like, yeah, you're supposed to, right? I like when they tell me they're round, I never want to hear about their birdies. They want to tell you about their birdies, right? Because that's the stories they want to share. I always want to hear about the bogeys on their card. And so there's this ongoing joke with my players where they're like, "Well, don't you want to hear about my birdies?" And I was like, "No, I could care less. Like you're supposed to make birdies if you're taking care of things and like you'll fall into them. I want to hear about how you bogeyed this par five or how you bogeyed this 290-yard par four. And when I'm caddying, I think again, like one of my biggest strengths is, or as a coach, is simply just staying very, very centered. And I think that a lot of that was bred from my experience playing poker because you have to stay objective when you're playing poker, or else if you have any level of tilt, which is just letting kind of becoming emotional and letting your decisions be driven by emotion, that's the recipe for just blasting through and, punting off a lot of money. And so poker kind of allowed me to build this resilience of not getting too high, not getting too low. And maybe some of my players hate that, but ultimately when things are going sideways with them, I think I'm quite a nice calming presence around them or as a coach, providing them with context of understanding like, yes, it was a frustrating day and you didn't make any putts, but like overall on the average of the tournament, you're like right at baseline or you're right at normal. And instead of letting them catastrophize, kind of like talk them off the ledge in a way by providing them a bit of context of like, well, you got a little bit lucky yesterday because remember when you hit shot XYZ and then the ball ended up by the hole and you made it? Well, that kind of like counters this shot where maybe you got unlucky and hit the rake in the bunker and it bounced out of bounds. And providing those types of little frames of reference can oftentimes, once again, just keep them a bit more centered and grounded.
Yeah, so touching on the poker side, very good at poker then, I presume, if it was for 18 years.
Good enough, right? You don't have to be the best at the table. You just don't want to be the worst.
Has there ever been times where you felt like, oh yeah, I could be the worst at this table?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, and that's one of the reasons like objectivity is so important because there are times in poker where you're just basically chosen to lose, right? So the simplest example is like you're dealt pocket kings and someone gets pocket aces. You're just supposed to lose there. If you're not losing all your money in that spot, you're actually playing suboptimally. In most cases, like obviously there's some extreme outliers, but that's just an example where it's like if you have the second best possible hand and someone has the first best possible hand, you can't look back on it and be like, I should have folded it. Like you get all in with aces and you lose. You can't look back on it and be like, oh, I should have folded my aces, right? You can't let the results dictate the process. And that's again one of those parallels that's so fundamental to golf because oftentimes we let the outcome of the shot dictate whether we think we screwed up, and that's not always a fair barometer.
Yeah, yeah, and so like in terms of like obviously I know you're very busy, a very busy coach with the players and stuff, but like as a golf lover, do you ever just get to enjoy watching the golf at all, or?
Yeah, I'm a golf junkie to the core. My buddies and I have a golf pool. We pick five players at every event, and we do like college scoring. So we draft five players, and then you just keep the best four. And we've done like a one and done pool for probably 15 years now. And I'm always watching golf on TV on a weekend and checking on leaderboards. And I'm talking like obviously I check on like Epson, LPGA and stuff, looking at how the players I work with are doing. But I also am like persistently checking PGA Tour, Corn Ferry, PGA Americas, and part of it is that I'm very familiar with a lot of the players, worked with a lot of them in college and stuff. So there is like a personal tie-in to that. And then with college golf season, like you've got dozens and dozens of events every week to be following the leaderboard. So typically during the workday, I'll have like an entire series of maybe 15 tabs that are all open of all just college scores, and I'm just constantly refreshing and checking in on my teams.
So, what would you say is the best tour in the world then?
The best tour?
Yeah, to watch.
Um, Hmm. That's a tough question. I honestly enjoy LPGA more because I just think that there's a certain purity to their game because they don't have these alien-like swing speeds and stats, right? So they have to figure out how to bounce the ball on the green. They have to figure out how to get the ball in the hole as opposed to just launching it into orbit and coming down with so much backspin that the ball just sits. Um, so while I appreciate the stuff that like Scotty's doing and like watching Rory hit tee shots and all of that stuff, I would sooner watch if the LPGA had better coverage, I would watch more of their content, if that makes sense. Because there's just something way more relatable to their game than there is the men's game. And like their setups are decent enough that they challenge you, but but overall there's just an element to their game that is way more relatable or teachable than say the PGA Tour where it's just like, well, yeah, you just hit pitching wedge from 155 yards to this tucked pin and then your ball just stops, right? Like that it's fine. And obviously there are certain venues that I'm going to watch more than others, right? Like so I will always watch like Riviera, obviously the majors, stuff like that. But week to week, like once we get into that lull in the summer, I'll tune out the PGA Tour the most as far as, like kind of like the John Deere 3M Open, that time. That's probably a big void in my golf consumption.
Yeah, so basically the birdie fests.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not excited to watch players shoot 62, 61 when the greens are soft and the guys are sweating in 100% humidity. Not my type of golf.
Oh, that's fair. So finish off with a few questions. So, what's the best golf course either you played or like had the chance to be inside the ropes or like just there in person?
Favorite course I've played is probably Scioto Country Club here in Ohio. It's hosting the Senior US Open next year, or this year, I guess. So I'm excited to kind of see how it holds up. That's the course that Jack Nicklaus grew up on. Um, I've been on Muirfield Village, I've been on Inverness. They're special places, but I wouldn't say that anything about them stood out aside from its history. And then the coolest course that just from a sheer uniqueness would have to be Wolf Creek out in Las Vegas. It's
Okay.
basically, I believe that if, as story goes, they had to helicopter all of the bunker sand up there because it's so high. And when you go to play, you sign a literal waiver that's basically like, if I die while driving a golf cart on this, I will not sue the club. And everywhere when you park nearby the green, you have to like park over a speed bump, so it basically acts as like a tire chalk to wedge the cart so that it stays there a little more securely. So Wolf Creek is just really neat because of just how unique that piece of land is. So those would probably be my answers.
Yeah, and so like in terms of so in terms of like the the sports that you watched growing up, etc. Did you have a favorite sport growing up or favorite sports team?
Yeah, my generation, I think we all watched the Chicago Cubs growing up because they were on TV when we got home from school. They always had afternoon ball games, and it was on WGN, and like clockwork, we could just turn it on once we got home from school and do our homework while watching the Cubs play. And so I think that's like pretty iconic for me, despite not really identifying as a Cubs fan. I'm a huge hockey fan, really enjoy live hockey. That's probably it's my favorite sport to watch live. Um, but otherwise, I just like sports in general. Like I watch a lot of football, I watch a lot of basketball, I watch a ton of golf, and just am just a general sports fanatic.
Yeah, like would sorry, I forgot to ask this like in terms of your backstory, but like where did you actually grow up, like reside?
Yeah, I grew up exactly where I live. So I'm about 5 minutes from
Aye.
my childhood home here in Ohio. And, my wife and I met in high school, and we've been together for since high school. So we had an opportunity to move back home, be near both of our parents at this age, which was pretty important to us. So we live about 10 minutes from either of our parents. And yeah, so 5 minutes from my parents' house that I grew up in, and then about 10 minutes from my high school.
So do you follow any of the was it Cincinnati teams?
I follow them as much as I follow any other team. I'm not a fan of Cincinnati sports or Ohio State Buckeyes or anything like that. I just like sports. So I'll watch the national title game, I'll watch the Super Bowl and all of that stuff, but no rooting interest. Like I have friends who are just diehard Cincinnati Bengals fans or Ohio State Buckeyes fans, and yeah, none of that appeals to me.
How many languages can you speak?
I speak two fluently, and then I'm semi-conversational in Spanish. So I speak Mandarin, Chinese, English, and then studied 8 years of Spanish, but that's definitely degraded with my lack of use.
Wow, Mandarin.
Mhm.
So how useful do you think that is? Not knowing that you got the Mandarin skills that potentially could, make it easier for, a Chinese player or whatever. Like,
Yeah, it's come in handy. Even at the PGA show, there were quite a few people from China that I was able to communicate directly with, and then I've been fortunate enough to meet a handful of Chinese players and kind of talk through some things with them without having to deal with the language barrier. So certainly an advantage, and grateful that my parents forced me to learn Chinese growing up and continue to speak it despite my resistance growing up.
no, that's fair enough. Favorite cuisine?
Chinese food. Obvious answer, but Chinese food, I think it's extremely versatile. I love all of the fresh produce, fresh vegetables. So, yeah, Chinese food any time of the day.
Yeah, how much on the spice chart can you do? Can you do quite spicy?
I am a extreme wimp when it comes to spicy.
Really?
Like zero. Yeah, 0 to one star spicy is about the most I can get.
I thought maybe you'd be like, the three chili signs, something like
No,
that.
no. Nope. Mine's as mild as possible.
No, that's fair enough. And last question, who were your kind of sporting idols growing up?
Honestly, not not many, I followed like Tiger closely. I've always been a fan of just watching generational greatness. So a draw to like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, all of them. Like LeBron, obviously with the Ohio ties, he was like a natural person to root for. Like the Federers, the Sampras, um, Tiger, of course. So it's I'm not one that I would much rather watch like the Tom Brady's of the world and kind of see what additional great things they can accomplish than to see them lose, which I know probably puts me in the minority because people love seeing successful people get chopped down. But I've always just kind of been the one to root for greatness, right? Hall of Fame caliber performance. I would much rather see Patrick Mahomes continue to add Super Bowl rings to see how many he can get than to see a fluky Super Bowl winner, for example. So that's always kind of been my draw to individual athletes or individual teams.
Right, I know that you're a very busy man, and you've got another few phone calls after this, and I hope it's not been too bad, to be honest. But
Perfect.
it's been great to have you on, and fingers crossed the snow kind of clears off eventually. Anyway, that's for sure. But anyway, Alex, thank you so much for coming on, and all the best for 2026. And
Yeah, I appreciate
finger,
you having me on. I hope the listeners have made it this far. If you have, thank you so much for watching. If any of you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My Instagram's at Alex Huang Golf, and I would be delighted to nerd out about golf data or help answer any questions you may have about anything in the golf world.
yeah, so basically, if you're a shit golfer, go to Alex for help. So,
Perfect. Challenge accepted.
right, Alex, all the best, and
Thank you.
fingers crossed for obviously some of your team to do well this year.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.